Hi, this is Mark Wallstrom, and you're watching Speaking of Settlements, a featured broadcast here on the Legal Broadcast Network. Well, we're continuing our month-long series on structured legal fees or structured attorney's fees, profiling each of the life insurance companies that underwrite or provide these unique products for trial lawyers and lawyers all over the United States. And today we're being joined by Mike Wastapol of American General, which is a subsidiary of AIG. Mike, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, you're welcome.
Well, the pleasure is all ours, and we're delighted to have someone from American General on and have the opportunity to talk to someone from the company. Now, Mike, you're a vice president with American General. You've been with them for a while. Can you just tell us a little bit about American General and you know, the areas that they work in, or the area that you work in structured settlements?
Sure. We've been writing structured settlements, Mark, for, gosh, arguably over 30 years. It's always been kind of something to volley around who wrote the first structured settlement, and I don't think anybody's really come up with who was the first.
Sure.
But like I said, we've been doing it for 30 years. Just in the last 10 years, we've actually issued almost $11 billion in structured settlement premium, more than any other company.
Yeah.
And so we know what we do well, and we enjoy writing structures, and we enjoy our relationships with the distribution and people like you, Mark.
Well, great. Well, a lot of people, and what I'd like to do is kind of jump into this first. You know, AIG's been in the news. You know, we know for both good or bad, but we've done some stories on it recently. The news has really turned very positive, and one of the reasons I'm delighted that you're here and joining us today, Mike, is I'd just like to briefly touch on the issue of where American General is, and we've discussed here on the Settlement Channel and several of our broadcasts how encouraging the financial picture has been really in the last year, and even just in the last month or two. Can you just give us a brief snapshot on, to the degree that you're comfortable, talking about where the company is today?
Yeah, I can talk about where we're at with American General, and then American General is actually part of what happened is that AIG did a reorganization, and they put together all the domestic life and retirement services into one company, and that's called SunAmerica Financial Group. And when they did that, what it did is that we now represent the fourth largest life insurance company in the United States. Now, American General is a part of SunAmerica Financial Group. What I can tell you also is that just from a balance sheet perspective, from fourth quarter of 2008 to 2009, during this Great Recession, our balance sheet is actually stronger. At the end of 2008, we had about $38.7 billion in assets. And now at the end of 2009, we're at 39.6, which is about a 3% increase in assets. On top of that, our liabilities actually went down by a couple $100 million, so our capital position is actually in great shape and increased by 15%.
Yeah, and that's great news, and that I think is one of the untold stories really of the last 16 to 18 months, is how strongly the life insurance and financial services area has bounced back. And many of the companies that write structured settlements and structured legal fees have been, right there at the forefront on that. Well, Mike, we'll be addressing a lot of the ratings and putting that information in the blog post. But let's kind of jump into our topic today on structured legal fees, and let's talk a little bit about what type of cases American General will consider for structuring legal fees. Every company has kind of their own underwriting decisions. Can you just give us a brief synopsis on that?
Yeah, American General will accept structured attorney fees on any case that involves a physical injury, which would be under 104A1 or 2 of the IRS code. But more importantly, we'll take a structured settlement attorney fee if the claimant either structures with another life company or if the claimant decides not to structure. So I think that's a great point, and maybe unique amongst some of the others, is that we're able to accommodate the attorney as long as you have talked about in your past interviews, Mark, that they have the acknowledgement language in the settlement agreement and in their client engagement letter or retainer.
Right, and that was going to be one of my next questions, and this is something we've been stressing with a lot of people. Is one of the biggest things we found, and I'm sure you see it on the life company side, is that people come in really with sloppy documents and trying to tack this on at the last moment. That acknowledgement language or convenience language is very important. Can you just explain to people just again a little bit about what that convenience language is and why that's important that it be in there?
Sure. It's important for it to be in the settlement documents, but I guess the acknowledgement language itself is what it's doing, Mark, is that it's saying the claimant themselves owe the attorney some type of retainer or the amount that's due on in settling their case, right?
Mm-hmm.
In discharge of that attorney fee obligation, the plaintiff is saying that what I'm going to do is pay you your fee through the periodic payments, and that's what the acknowledgement language is doing. Is that it's just basically paying the attorney for the services that are rendered.
Okay. Now, does AIG see structured legal fees as an area of growth in the next few years? I mean, how do they plan any improvements or enhancements to the product that you'd be willing to share with us today? Because I personally believe that as we go into the next 3 to 5 years, and tax rates go up, and attorneys, the baby boom generation gets closer and closer to retirement, the desire to structure fees and use it for retirement planning, I think, is going to increase. What are your thoughts, or is the company positioning themselves in that area?
Well, I think the magic, phrase is probably asset allocation.
Mm-hmm.
We were lucky enough to think about what we're going to do with attorney fees over the long term, and as soon as there was a change in leadership in the Oval Office, we jumped up the opportunity and we changed our brochure. We actually have a website out there called structuremyfees.com.
Really?
And, I mean, to be frank, I think we all know that there'll probably be some type of change in the tax code for those that are, making north of $250,000.
Right.
And this is a good way for attorneys to actually allocate their assets in a prudent way. I have an actual consultant that's a friend of ours that structured some fees in the past with an attorney, and I think you'll probably see it on our website in the next few months, but they're going to actually do a testimonial. And one of the encouraging things that we heard is that the attorney said that he was able to actually retire because of the attorney fees that he had structured in the past versus his friends, and now he mediates part-time.
See, yeah, and that's a great story, and it's something, again, I can attest to in my own experience as an advisor, that the guys who had the foresight to structure their fees and to plan, many of them retire early or take a reduced workload because they've got that additional money that's coming in and are able to work as much as they want to work, as opposed to having to work more than they want to work, into their 60s and into their 70s, because many of them stay very active. So yeah, that's great, and I'm delighted to hear you guys put that page in place and are being that proactive, which really kind of leads me to my next question. What areas do you think are particular areas of strength, or maybe some unique features that American General has that you think brokers and certainly trial lawyers may not be aware of?
I think it's a couple things, Mark. The first one that comes to mind is that we're able to do substandard underwriting on the attorney themselves, and I know that you've talked about substandard underwriting in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what we're doing is underwriting the health of the attorney. And what that can do is that if there is a health condition, it can either reduce the cost of a particular asset allocations they want to do, or it may increase their benefits. So I think that's one of the first things that is probably the best selling point about American General. Number two is that we highly recommend, of course, that they either have the estate or the firm as their beneficiary, but we are able to make modifications as long as we have the standard beneficiary change language that's in the settlement agreement. We can go ahead and make those changes prospectively. Thirdly, I think a selling point, and when you've talked about doing structuring their attorney fees on multiple cases and the laddering that can be done, is that American General allows you to do a period certain with a cost of living increase up to 9.9%. and then on a lifetime up to 6%. But those are probably the three big ones that I can think of, Mark.
Yeah, and those are really unique, and this is one of the things that we've stressed in this series, and as we kind of wrap up this conversation, that we really want to drive home, not just to settlement professionals, but to tax planners, to CPAs, to the attorneys themselves, is that each company has their own unique features, and it is vitally important that you work with a qualified settlement professional, somebody who is licensed in this area, who has E&O coverage, who has experience working and has all of these markets, because each market is unbelievably unique and has a variety of different things. And I think really our theme in this series, Mike, as we kind of bring this to a close, is that we want to match the right company to the right risk, and we don't want to exclude companies or markets just based on general perceptions or concerns that they may have. As we've discussed, American General has been around a long time. They're one of the major underwriters and have been in the area of structured settlements. And I think those of us who've spent some time in the industry expect that American General is going to be here for a long time to come as well. Mike, if anyone has to contact you or American General or wants to learn more about American General's products, what was the name of that website again?
I think the easiest way to contact us, Mark, is structuremyfees.com. It gives some information about structuring your fees, some scenarios that you may consider when you do decide to structure your fees. And then if you scroll to the bottom, there's a Contact Us, and if you hit that, it'll have our name, our address, and our phone number.
Great. Hey, Mike, thanks again for joining us. I really appreciate you spending the time and giving us all this information. You've been watching, Speaking of Settlements, a featured broadcast here on the Legal Broadcast Network.